Part 83. Blessed to have each other in this life, Shao, your wife is born again. Author, HandsomeMaleLead. Chapter 821. Sidhu Yan stayed in the aseptic warehouse for 20 days, recovered well, and was transferred to the general ward. When Mu Ziyi and Chen Kailing went to see him, the windows of the ward were half open, and the sun shone in warmly through the white screens. Chen Kailing hurried to the window and closed it. Don't catch a cold, the doctor said that your resistance is still weak now. It's not windy today, so I opened the window to let in some air. Sidhu Yan looked out the window with a soft expression on his face. I haven't smelled such fresh air for a long time. The aseptic warehouse is a fully enclosed environment, with no sunlight and no access to the outside world. Living under incandescent lights every day, there is a sense of confusion that does not know the rotation of day and night. Patients have to endure both pain in treatment and psychological pressure. Now that Sidhu Yan moved to the general ward, he finally felt the ease of death away. Have you gotten used to living at home recently? Sidhu Yan asked Mu Ziyi. I'm used to it, Mu Ziyi told him truthfully. The household registration has been moved here, and my name has been changed to Sidhu Muzi. The old man has assigned me a bodyguard and a driver. After hearing this, Sidhu Yan was silent for a while, and asked her, did the old lady say anything? It seems that he also knows that the old lady's character is difficult to get along with. Mu Ziyi tilted her head to look at him. Why do you ask like that? Do you think the old lady won't like me? When she asked, Sidhu Yan thought for a while, and replied half-jokingly, Zizi, it doesn't matter if she doesn't like you, there is no one in the family that she likes, even me, she hates very much. No, although I don't know her very well, I think she likes you very much, Mu Ziyi said seriously. It is precisely because she likes you that she endures me, a person she hates every day. Sidhu Yan was amused by Mu Ziyi's unique point of view, and turned to ask Chen Kailing, did Mom make things difficult for Ziyi? Chen Kailing was not easy to speak. She was a daughter-in-law, so she had no reason to speak ill of her mother-in-law behind her back, but her mother-in-law's temper, if she said that she didn't embarrass Mu Ziyi, Sidhu Yan would not believe it. Just as he was hesitating, Mu Ziyi spoke first. The old lady has been eating in her own room for the past few days, we can't see each other, so it's not difficult to talk about it. Sidhu Yan was slightly stunned, and immediately understood that the old lady was deliberately flirting to embarrass Mu Ziyi. The older his mother was, the more eccentric her temper became. She was capricious and unreasonable. Even a gentle person like Chen Kailing once angered the old lady. The old lady lost her temper, but was stopped by the old gentleman. The old lady no longer came out to eat. Just like an angry child, she ate in her own room for several days. In the end, Chen Kailing bowed down and went to her to confess her mistake. After coaxing her to feel comfortable, she was willing to come out to eat with everyone. Although Sidhu Yan was in the hospital, he could almost imagine how the old lady would lose her temper at home. If you're not used to living there, I still have a house in the western suburbs. I occasionally live in it during summer vacations. It has all the furniture. Sidhu Yan tried to discuss moving out with Mu Ziyi. He originally felt ashamed of Mu Ziyi. I really don't want Mu Ziyi to be wronged again. Mu Ziyi shook her head. It's too troublesome to move around. Anyway, it's only a few days, I live pretty well. When she said this, Sidhu Yan couldn't force her anymore, but she was still worried that Mu Ziyi was holding on. Sidhu Yan took advantage of Mu Ziyi's going to the bathroom, and whispered to Chen Kailing, next time Mom loses her temper, tell me, I'll be alone, talk to Dad. The only person in the world who can subdue the old lady is the old gentleman. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, HandsomeMaleLead. Chapter 822. In fact, Sidhu Yan simply thought too much, and the only people who could make Mu Ziyi feel wronged were those she cared about. As for the ones she didn't care about, she didn't even bother to look at them, so why bother? After talking with Sidhu Yan in the hospital for a while, Muzi and Chen Kailing returned to the presidential palace. Just in time for dinner, the old lady did not show up as usual, and the meal was finished quietly. Muse's appetite has been poor recently, and he didn't touch much food, so he took a fresh ginseng from the kitchen and chewed it. When I went upstairs, I met the old lady. The old lady didn't intend to talk to Muse, but she saw the American ginseng in Muse's hand, and she couldn't help but sneer, "Have you ever eaten ginseng? Eat it like a cucumber." Muse glanced at the ginseng in her hand, and while chewing, said in a vague voice, "I have eaten it, usually stewed soup or soaked in water, but recently my stomach is full of water, so I want to eat it directly, so the nutrition is well absorbed, but it is a bit bitter." It's okay if she doesn't explain, but when she explained, the old lady felt that she was laughing at her ignorance, and said angrily, "You can use it? Of course I know that ginseng can be chewed and eaten. Others slice it into slices chewing, look at you, how can you have any manners? Only country people eat like this." Muzi was not angry, but just quietly looked at the old lady, chewing fresh ginseng slowly. Being stared at by her like this, the old lady became even angrier. When she was about to get angry, Muzi said, "Old lady, you have such a bad temper, it must be because you have too much anger. My mother said that people with anger tend to have white hair on their temples. I think the old man is a few years older than you, and he doesn't seem to have as many gray hairs as you, so you should also eat some ginseng to invigorate chi and clear fire. Mr. Sidhu is 70 this year, and Mrs. Sidhu is a few years younger, about 65 years old, but there is no difference in age between the two." Being said to have a bad temper and a lot of gray hair, the old lady immediately brought it up with angry eyes, "You? What do you mean? You say I am old." "I didn't say it." Muzi shook her head, "My mother said it. She comes from a family of traditional Chinese medicine, so she can't be wrong." The old lady didn't know that Muzi was talking about Bai Wei, but when she used Ruan Li to suppress her, she became furious and shouted, "My health is very good. It's not up to you to teach me. I think you are deliberately trying to curse me to death. Full of nonsense, it's really rebellious." Muzi took a bite of ginseng, chewed it, and said, "You really should eat some ginseng." After finishing speaking, I didn't care what the old lady said, and went straight back to the room. After closing the door, she heard roars coming from the corridor. Musa locked the door, put on her earphones, and lay down on the bed to read. The old lady lost her temper in the corridor, and almost everyone in the family heard her. Ning Yue knew that the old lady was angry at Muzi and wished that the fire would grow bigger, so naturally she would not try to persuade her. Chen Kailing wanted to persuade her, but before she could open her mouth, she was scolded bloody by the old lady. The old lady vented on Chen Kailing, but she was still not relieved, and went back to the room angrily. Mr. Sidhu finished talking with the chief of staff, and when he returned to his room, he saw a broken mirror lying on the floor, and the old lady sat on the edge of the bed with a gloomy face. "What's the matter?" Mr. Sidhu was stunned. When the old lady saw that he was back, she immediately stared at his temples. 70 years old, Mr. Sidhu's hair is mixed with black and white, and there are not many gray hairs. In addition, there is hope for his son's illness. He is in good spirits and looks younger than his actual age. The old lady thought of her almost snow-white temples, and the more she thought about it, the angrier she became. "I married into your Sidhu's family and took care of it all my life. I worked hard. You are good. You don't have to worry about anything when you are comfortable, and you even have less gray hair than me. It's a lot of age. Who do you want to be young for? What do you do? Don't just dye it all black. You're not ashamed of yourself." Old Mr. Sidhu was caught off guard by being scolded, and he didn't even know what was going on. His face was livid. Baffling, he didn't want to quarrel with the old lady, so he slammed the door and went to the study. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life, Shao, your wife is born again. Author, HandsomeMaleLead. Chapter 823. At lunch the next day, the old lady appeared at the dining table without warning. Although everyone didn't know what was going on, they still breathed a sigh of relief. No matter what, the whole family should sit together and eat together peacefully. Otherwise, gossip would inevitably arise after a long time. The old lady not only came out to eat, but also asked the kitchen to prepare a small plate of sliced fresh ginseng for her. I saw it and said, "Old madam, if you want to replenish your energy, you'd better drink it in stewed soup. Eating it directly will have a strong taste, and you won't be able to eat it." The old lady glanced at I proudly and contemptuously. Without saying anything, she gracefully picked up the ginseng slices with chopsticks, gently put them in her mouth, and chewed. As if to say, "See, hillbillies, this is how ginseng is eaten." I frowned suspiciously. At this moment, the old lady caught another piece. After eating 6 or 7 tablets in a row, I saw that there was no abnormality on the old lady's face, so she didn't bother to care about it anymore, and went to eat by herself. Only the old man noticed that his wife's hands were clenched into fists under the dining table, with bulging veins on the back of her hands. Ginseng tastes bitter, and if it is chewed raw, it has a strong medicinal taste. Mr. Sidhu sighed silently in his heart. I really don't know what she is fighting about. In the afternoon, a little guest came to Sidhu's house, who was Chen Kailing's niece. The elderly always prefer children, probably because, the older they are, the more they yearn for the vitality of children like the rising sun. As for Chen Kailing's little niece, she is a little girl and a big ghost, and she is very fond of people. For such a mean person, the old lady couldn't help but be kind when she saw Chen Kailing's niece, and asked the servants to serve them with various snacks. "Why is Feng Feng free to come and play today? There is no class at school?" the old lady asked with a smile. The little girl's name was Chen Nanfen, and she was still in elementary school. "There's no need to attend club activities today." Chen Nanfen took a bite of a biscuit and said solemnly, "I came here specially to carry out club activities." The old lady laughed. "Oh, what are the activities of your club?" Chen Nanfen rolled his black and white eyes, and said in a low voice, "This can't be said, we have been operating in secret all along." "Oh, it's quite mysterious," the old lady laughed. Chen Kailing also smiled helplessly, and lightly poked Chen Nanfen's forehead. "Don't be naughty." "I'm not being naughty, I'm really here to carry out club activities." Chen Nanfen hugged his school bag, revealing a corner of the documents and files inside, and said seriously, "See, here are all top secret files." The old lady laughed loudly. "It's quite like that." Chen Nanfen approached Chen Kailing with his school bag in his arms, and asked, "Auntie, is the elder sister you mentioned last time, is she at home?" The old lady didn't know why, so she asked Chen Kailing, "Which sister is Feng Feng talking about?" Chen Kailing said embarrassingly, "Mom, Feng Feng is talking about Muzi." When the old lady heard Muzi's name, her complexion suddenly became ugly, and she said in a strange way, Of course she is at home, she is locked in the room every day, and the door does not leave the second door, she is more precious than me, an old woman." The little girl couldn't hear the sarcasm in these words, and said happily, "That's great. I'll go find her." Speaking of picking up her school bag and running upstairs, Chen Kailing was startled. "Hey! Feng Feng!" But Chen Nanfen had already disappeared from Ying only the sound of her footsteps could be heard. Chen Kailing turned to look at the old lady in embarrassment, and said apologetically, "Mom, I'll go up and have a look, Feng Feng is too familiar, I'm afraid she will cause trouble again. The old lady grimaced and snorted heavily. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 824. Muzi I was leaning on the wicker chair on the balcony to read a book when she heard a knock on the door. She lowered her eyes to look at the time. It was not time for meal yet. This is rather strange, usually the servants would only knock on the door during meal times. As for the rest of Sidhu's family, they all shunned him. The only person who could come to see him was Chen Kaling, but they just went to the hospital to see Sidhu Yan yesterday, and Muzi I couldn't think of what she could do if she came to see him now. Opening the door, there was indeed Chen Kaling outside the door, followed by a little girl. You are Muzi. Before Chen Kaling could introduce, the little girl jumped out first. You want to help my father reverse the case, right? Can I be your assistant? I am very sincere, and I still have many helpers. The cooperation between the two will definitely be invincible. The little girl's voice echoed in the corridor, clear and crisp. Chen Kaling was embarrassed, pulled Chen Nanfan back to her side, and explained, this is my niece, she is very concerned about her father's case. I heard that I was looking for a lawyer, and I have always wanted to meet you. Muzi I suddenly realized that since Murong Cheng's accident, she had already forgotten all about the case, and Chen Kaling never mentioned it again. Come to think of it, the space in a person's heart is really limited. Her husband is seriously ill, so she has no way to spare energy to run for her brother's affairs. She doesn't know if her lover is dead, and she has no time to think about other things. Muzi I's eyes fell on the little girl in front of her. She turned sideways and said, come in. Chen Nanfan followed Chen Kaling into the room, looked around curiously, you live here? It feels so ordinary. Chen Kaling blushed, Feng Feng. Don't be rude. The little girl argued, I'm not being rude. This room is really ordinary. There are no hats, pipes, or magnifying glasses. Muzi I laughed, did he regard her as a detective? I don't need those things. Muzi took out something from the drawer and placed it gently on the table, I just have this. It was a pistol with a metallic luster. Cool, Chen Nanfan's eyes lit up, and when he looked at Muzi I, the admiration and envy immediately overflowed like a surging river. Chen Kaling gasped, she didn't know that Muzi I carried this kind of thing with him. Her little niece was happily playing with a gun, and Chen Kaling turned pale with fright. It's okay, there are no bullets in it, Muzi I explained with a smile. Only then did Chen Kaling breathe a sigh of relief. When the two chatted about the case, Muzi I didn't shy away from it, and told Chen Kaling bluntly, the possibility of overturning the case is very low, especially since your brother can't provide an alibi. Unless we can find key evidence, we will still appeal. Even if we appeal again, the original judgment is upheld. Chen Nanfan listened with great interest, and interjected, what kind of evidence is the key evidence? Feng Feng. Chen Kaling showed a bit of sternness, adults speak, children don't. It doesn't matter. Muzi I didn't mind, and looked at Chen Nanfan, the key evidence we need can be evidence that your father was not at the scene when the crime happened, or evidence that the deceased was killed by someone else. After hearing this, Chen Nanfan immediately took out a thick document bag from his skull bag, and said seriously, I have a lot of evidence, take a look, is there any key evidence? The file bag was opened, and there was a thick stack of printed photos, including landscape photos and portrait photos. At first glance, there was no connection with the case. Chen Kaling was stunned, Feng Feng, where did you get these photos? Chen Nanfan raised his head proudly, it's said to be a top-secret file, and the source is of course kept secret. Auntie, don't ask. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 825. Muzi I flipped through the photos, and couldn't help but raise the corners of her lips, thinking that the little girl was quite interesting. Chen Nanfen leaned over. How is it? Is there any key evidence? As long as you let me be your assistant, I will provide you with information in an endless stream. Mu Ziyi raised her head and asked her with a smile, how old are you? 12 years old, Chen Nanfen replied. How long did it take you to collect these photos? Mu Ziyi asked. Chen Nanfen said proudly, I have been collecting since I was 8 years old. Mu Ziyi couldn't help laughing. I started collecting evidence at the age of 8. Your father has been in prison for just 2 years. You say you are 12. Chen Nanfen blushed, and argued forcefully, I'm talking about false years. That's not right, is it? Mu Ziyi smiled, the false age is only 1 year older. I'll be 11 years old in a few months. If I round it up, I'll be 12 years old. The little girl was embarrassed. Mu Ziyi shook her head with a smile, as an assistant to me, you can't count your age as false, and you can't round it up. The first element in investigating a case is rigor. Chen Nanfen bit his lip and lowered his head in frustration. Well, I'm 10 years old. Chen Kailing couldn't do anything about her niece, so she smiled helplessly. Feng, why do you insist on talking about 2 years? Chen Nanfen muttered in a low voice, adolescents over the age of 12, children under the age of 12, and now is a society that discriminates against children. Mu Ziyi and Chen Kailing laughed together. The little girl's expression became more mournful, as if she was complaining silently, look, you all look down on me. Don't worry, I don't discriminate against you. Mu Ziyi smiled. In the evening Chen Nanfen stayed for dinner. There was a child at the dinner table, and the atmosphere immediately changed. Xiao Nanfen is cute, and has a lively personality like a boy. She is not shy at all, saying this is delicious, and then saying that is delicious, and she praises the food at the presidential palace. Mr. Sidhu and Ms. Sidhu saw that she was eating well, and they even had an appetite, so they ate a few more mouthfuls without knowing it. The old lady smiled and told, eat slowly, no one will grab you. Is it because you haven't eaten enough for lunch or something? Chen Nanfen rubbed his belly and stretched his neck to look at the dining table. That golden shrimp, is there any more? Xiao He, do you still have the hibiscus shrimp? The old lady asked the servant beside her. The maid doesn't know, go to the kitchen and ask. Chen Kailing said, forget it if you don't have one, too much food at night is not good for digestion. The old lady stared immediately, the half-old child is just growing up, so he can eat more. Look at Feng's arm, there is no meat at all. Feng, don't listen to your aunt, just eat it. Eat until you are full. Grandma, you are so kind. You are really my dear grandma, Chen Nanfen flattered the old lady exaggeratedly. The old lady smiled from ear to ear, oh, I don't dare to compare with your grandma. It's your grandma who loves you. Mr. Sidhu also couldn't stop laughing. Feng's mouth is really sweet today. I think what you eat is not shrimp, but honey. Because I'm in a good mood today, Chen Nanfen said with a smile, Sister Musa promised to reverse the case for my father, and I will be her first assistant from now on. Just like Sherlock Holmes and Watson. The old lady's smile instantly froze at the corner of her mouth. Oh? Is there such a thing? Mr. Sidhu looked at Mu Ziyi. How sure are you of overturning the case for Nanfeng's father? Children are always very sensitive. Fearing that Mr. Sidhu would disagree, they rushed to talk. Grandpa, if you try hard to check, there is still a glimmer of hope. If you don't check, there is no hope at all. Mu Ziyi smiled and said, Feng formed a detective agency at school, and asked me to be a tutor for extracurricular activities. You don't have to worry, it's nothing serious. In this way, it should be just a child's play. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao. Your wife is born again. Author, Hua Liao. Chapter 826. Old Mr. Sidhu knew it in his heart, so he didn't take it too seriously, and teased Chen Nanfan with a smile. Fang Fang can investigate cases at such a young age, it's really not easy. Follow your sister, you must study hard, and you will be a great detective in the future. No 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 no, Chen Nanfan waved his hands again and again. If I become a detective, what will happen to our Chen family's wealth? No, my grandparents said that I will become a rich woman in the future. Detective game, it's just for playing as a kid. After finishing speaking, Wuzi sighed heavily, and continued, no wonder Conan has always been a primary school student. It seems that he really can't be a detective when he grows up. Those famous detectives seem to be quite poor. Everyone at the table laughed. Muzi's gloomy mood for many days can't help but become clearer, and she feels that Tongjian Tongyu has a particularly healing power. The old lady also forgot the momentary unhappiness just now, and said with a smile, Feng Feng, you can be a wealthy detective. Chen Nanfan thought about it seriously, and said cheerfully, Grandma, what you said is very reasonable. Everyone laughed again. The atmosphere of the dinner was so good. Ning Yue looked at the timing and said to Chen Kaling with a smile, speaking of the case, I happened to meet a friend recently. His uncle is a well-known barrister in the industry and has fought many lawsuits. Auntie, do you want me to ask for you? Chen Kaling was slightly stunned. She had already entrusted the case to Muzi. As the saying goes, if one job is done, another lawyer is hired. It would be disrespectful to Muzi. What's more, when the younger brother had an accident, the two lawyers hired by the Chen family were both top-notch barristers in the industry, and their resumes were shining like gold. Didn't they end up losing the lawsuit in the same way? Chen Kaling didn't feel much about the so-called well-known in the industry rhetoric, and was about to say no, when the father-in-law over there asked interestedly, oh? Which barrister is it? Ning Yue smiled and said, Grandpa, I said you probably don't know his Chinese name, but you must know his English name. He used to be a senior consultant at WK law firm in the United States. His name is Lister Yu, and his Chinese name is Yu James. It's Lister from WK law firm. Mr. Sidhu was really surprised. Why, he returned to China. Yes, I quit my job abroad and returned to China to start my own law firm. Ning Yue looked at Chen Kaling. I just made an appointment with a friend and his uncle for afternoon tea tomorrow. Auntie, why don't you come with me tomorrow? Go. At this time, Muzi didn't know why, and looked up at Ning Yue. Ning Yue's voice was soft and her eyes were smiling. Auntie, it doesn't matter if you're busy, I just feel that the opportunity is rare, so I won't lose anything if I go to meet and have a chat. Since the opportunity is rare, let's go. Mr. Sidhu said, Rist is quite capable. I heard that he has never been defeated. Several multinational companies have hired him to deal with merger disputes. Knowing if the criminal case is what he's good at. The father-in-law spoke, and Chen Kaling couldn't refuse, so she subconsciously glanced at Muzi. Muzi smiled faintly, and said, yes, maybe Mr. Lister will give some opinions from different angles. It's good to have a chat. Chen Nanfan was young, and when he heard the adults say that, he subconsciously asked, sister, is that Mr. Lister very powerful? Better than you? Ning Yue couldn't help laughing. Even Mr. Sidhu felt that there was no comparison between the two. One is a top figure in the industry, and the other is a student who has just passed the judicial examination. The outcome is almost crushing. Chen Kaling's face turned red. She was extremely embarrassed. She felt that her little niece said something wrong, embarrassing Muzi. Just racking his brains on how to smooth things over, at this moment, he heard Muzi say softly, Feng Feng, remember, it is very difficult to judge whether a person is good or not, and all factors must be considered, but for the parties involved, who can help him win the lawsuit, whoever is the most powerful person. Blessed to have each other in this life, Shao, your wife is born again. Author, HandsomeMaleLead. Chapter 827. It is like a patient suffering from a serious disease. No matter how famous a doctor is, it is meaningless to the patient. The most useful doctor is who can effectively solve the disease. When Mr. Sidhu heard the words, he felt something in his heart, and with a bit of awe on his face, he said to Chen Nanfan, "Your sister is right, there are many powerful people in this world, but what we need are those who can really help us people." Chen Nanfan half understood, but sensitively felt that something was wrong with the atmosphere. The little girl pursed her lips and stopped talking too much. Ning Yue drank the soup in the bowl silently, feeling regretful in her heart. Because after Muzi said these words, not only did she not lose face, but she vaguely won the favor of some old gentleman, which was not the result Ning Yue expected. But this regret was short-lived. After reassessing the opponent's strength, Ning Yue was already psychologically prepared, knowing that Muzi could not be defeated with just a few words, but a more ingenious and careful plan was needed. In fact, defeating Muzi was not Ning Yue's original intention. What she wanted was the real approval of the Sidhu family. Ning Yue glanced at Muzi's face from the corner of her eye, as if she saw a doomed wretch, and her heart was filled with unwavering peace. This time, she will let the Sidhu family truly understand who is the most useful person to the Sidhu family. The next day, Chen Kaling and Ning Yue went out together to meet the rumored Mr. Lister. Muzi and Chen Nanfan also made an appointment to go out together. When Chen Nanfan came to look for Muzi, he was dressed like a little detective, and happily kept saying, "Go out and investigate the case, go out and investigate the case." When Mr. Sidhu and the old lady saw this, they couldn't help laughing. They just thought that Muzi was hanging out with Chen Nanfan. Muzi and Chen Nanfan went to the prison. They went to see Chen Kaling's younger brother, Xiao Nanfan's father, Chen Bayan. While waiting for the prison guards to bring the prisoners out for a meeting, Muzi asked Chen Nanfan, "Your father named you?" "My grandfather," Chen Nanfan said. "Grandpa said that Nanfan was born on the North Shore, so my name is Nanfan." "Then what's your mother's name?" Muzi was curious. "Wouldn't her name be Dongyu? Or Zephyr?" Chen Nanfan spread his hands and said distressedly, "This question is too difficult. My father has too many women. Even if we do a paternity test, we have to queue up to do it until next year." Muzi laughed, and gently rubbed Xiao Nanfan's head. The door of the meeting room was opened, and the prison guards brought in a man in a prison uniform. When he saw them, there was obvious consternation on his face. "Feng Feng? Why are you here?" The man was surprised, and his eyes fell on Muzi. "Who are you?" "Father. She is Sister Muzi. The lawyer auntie is going to hire for you is her, you forgot, will rescue you." Chen Bayan's eyes flickered slightly. He didn't say anything, and sat down in front of them with his lips pursed. Chen Nanfan said, "Dad, why do you seem to be getting fat again? Is the food in the prison good?" Chen Bayan laughed, "Isn't it good to be fat? You used to think that Dad was too thin, and he didn't look like Santa Claus in Christmas clothes. I am no longer an 8-year-old child. There is no Santa Claus in this world." Chen Nanfan looked disgusted. "Dad, if I like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, do you still have to carry a shell?" Chen Bayan smiled and shook his head. "Feng Feng, a green-headed turtle is not a good metaphor." Chen Nanfan was puzzled, and looked at Muzi with a puzzled face. Muzi said, "Assistant Feng Feng, I have a top-secret news to tell your father. Can you help me go outside and guard it?" Chen Nanfan liked the set very much, and nodded with a solemn expression. Before leaving, she solemnly told Chen Bayan, "Father, there is no unsolvable mystery in this world. As long as you cooperate with our investigation, the truth will definitely come out. Blessed to have each other in this life, Shao, your wife is born again." Author, HandsomeMaleLead. Chapter 828. Muzi I couldn't help but laugh, and when Chen Nanfan walked out, he couldn't help saying, every time Fang Fang says something, people are always surprised. This is not what Fang Fang said. Chen Bayan looked at the direction where his daughter left, with a soft smile on his face. This is the line in Conan. She is a little detective fan. She has loved these things since she was a child. When I was in prison I was worried at first, afraid that the child would not be able to accept it, so guess what Fang Fang said? Muzi I asked, what did she say? Chen Bayan said with a smile, Fang Fang said that her destiny has destined her to be extraordinary, just like in the cartoon, if you want to be a Spider-Man, you have to be bitten by a spider, if you want to be a Batman, you have to be scared by bats, if you want to be a good detective, her relatives would have to be wronged and imprisoned, and since then she has embarked on the road of solving the mystery and fighting against evil forces from all sides. Muzi I smiled, Fang Fang is very cute. Yes, Chen Bayan turned his gaze back to Muzi I, so, what are you going to talk to me about? Chen Bayan has been in prison for 2 years. He has short hair and prison uniform. Muzi I no longer sees the pampered rich and young temperament in him. He looks very ordinary. It is hard to imagine that this is a man who brutally killed his wife and cut off his head. Murderer. 2 years ago, while driving home, Chen Bayan was stopped by the police and arrested for homicide. The servant confirmed that the couple had just had a big fight. After Chen Bayan left, the servant found his wife's body in the bedroom, and the body was missing a head. Chen Bayan claimed that he was drinking in a certain bar at the time of the incident, but he was later found to be lying, and his alibi was overturned. With the testimony of his servant, Chen Bayan was jailed. Muzi I thought for a while and said, let's talk about the alibi. Chen Bayan's eyes darkened slightly, I don't think I can help you, I have already said what I can say, I was drinking at the bar that day. I've seen your files. Muzi I interrupted him, the bartender didn't see you that day, and the surveillance video in front of the bar didn't capture the picture of you entering. You're lying, Mr. Chen Bayan, I think this is the reason why your lawyer lost 2 consecutive lawsuits. Chen Bayan remained silent. Muzi I continued, for the jury, a lie means guilt. If a person is not guilty, why should he lie? But I know that there is another reason for people to lie, such as, for personal reasons. Affectionate protection. Chen Bayan lowered his eyes and unconsciously curled up his fingers. You would rather go to jail than tell where you were that night. Could it be that the result is more terrible than going to jail? Muzi I calmly stared at the man in front of her, and suddenly asked, it has something to do with Fang Fang. Chen Bayan's expression froze, his eyes became more gloomy, I don't think we have anything to talk about, this meeting can end. So I guessed right, Muzi I smiled instead, took out a photo from her bag, put it on the table, and gently pushed it in front of Chen Bayan, you were with her that night? This woman is Fang Fang's mother. Chen Bayan's face darkened completely, and he stood up suddenly, enough. No matter what you found, please stop immediately. Miss Muzi I don't need your ridiculous and childish sympathy, and I don't need anyone to help me. Justice. I've seen too many lawyers like you and you think you're great? Awesome. Sorry, I don't think so. I just think you lawyers are like fleas, unaware and so annoying. Seeing that the prisoner was emotionally unstable, the prison guard immediately came over. Muzi I waved her hand to signal no need. Mr. Chen Bayan, this photo was given to me by Fang Fang, can you believe it? The 8-year-old child is looking for evidence everywhere to prove your innocence. Muzi I said, Fang Fang's saying is very correct, it is a society that discriminates against children, you are just making a wishful sacrifice, and you don't care what Fang Fang thinks at all. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Liao. Chapter 829. The photos were taken with a time-lapse camera. This kind of camera can set the interval to take pictures continuously. It is usually used to record the growth of plants, or the changes of weather and rain. The operation is very simple. 4A batteries can make it last for up to 78 days. In the observation courses of elementary schools, such cameras are usually equipped to teach elementary school students to observe the process of seed germination and growth. Chen Nanfan put a camera like this in front of his house. Why did she choose this location? Mu Zi guessed that Chen Nanfan was influenced by some detective animation works. Some murderers will quietly return to the scene of the murder after the dust settles, to retrieve something they missed, so as to avoid future troubles. Based on this idea, Chen Nanfan has been filming unshakably at the door of his house for 2 years. Children's persistence sometimes makes adults feel ashamed. She photographed maids, bodyguards, milkmen, couriers, housing agents, and countless others. At the same time, a slim woman wearing sunglasses was photographed. After Chen Baiyan's wife died, Chen Baiyan was convicted and imprisoned, and Chen Nanfan was taken to his grandparents' house, which soon became empty. But the woman had the key, and hurried in and out again. Mu Zi couldn't see her face clearly, but she was certain that this woman's identity must be very important, so that Chen Baiyan had to give up his alibi, willing to sit in more than 10 years of unjust imprisonment. This is also one of the places where lawyers are more frustrated than prosecutors. If it is a prosecutor, you only need to follow your own pace and find out all the doubts in an orderly manner. But what a lawyer has to do is to fight for the interests of the client and avoid losses. If Chen Baiyan is unwilling to reveal the secret, then even if Mu Zi finds out who the woman is, there is no way for her to testify in court. It's like when playing poker, you obviously have a fake card in your hand that can turn over, but you can only hold it in and can't play it. Mu Zi could only try in another direction. After the visiting time ended, Mu Zi left the meeting room. Chen Nanfan was waiting at the door, and when he saw Mu Zi coming out, he immediately looked over expectantly. What's the next plan? Next step? Mu Zi pondered for a moment, then smiled suddenly. How about going to the playground? Chen Nanfan's face collapsed, and he said unhappily, Sister, can we investigate the case properly? Don't treat me like a child, can you? Mu Zi laughed loudly. I didn't coax you, really. Let's go to the playground to investigate the case. Really? Chen Nanfan looked at her suspiciously. Didn't you take me to play, and then buy an ice cream or a balloon to send me off? Mu Zi patted her head and said with a smile, let's go. Mu Zi took Chen Nanfan to play in the playground all day. When they returned to the presidential palace, Chen Kailing and Ning Yue had already returned. When we met for the first time, we couldn't talk too much about the topic, but Chen Kailing's status as the president's wife made the other party very interested in the case, and said with great confidence that there was a great chance of winning the case. Chen Kailing couldn't make up her mind for a while. She originally wanted to lean towards Mu Zi, but both her in-laws and parents felt that Lister was better. In the next few days, Mu Zi and Chen Nanfan would go out to play every now and then. Chen Kailing felt even more uncertain. Mu Zi didn't say a word about the case. He either stayed at home or took Chen Nanfan to play around every day. Chen Kailing couldn't figure out what Mu Zi was thinking. In addition, Sidu Yan was about to be discharged from the hospital, so Chen Kailing wanted to delay the matter. It would be best for her to go to the prison after her husband was discharged from the hospital and discuss it with her brother. However, just when everyone was preparing to welcome Sidu Yan back, the prosecutor team from the Imperial Prosecutor's Office came to the hospital and asked Sidu Yan to accept investigation for the crime of helping to destroy and falsifying evidence. In Sidu Yan's villa in the western suburbs, the head of Chen Baiyan's wife was found. Blessed to have each other in this life, Mu Shao, your wife is born again. Author, Hua Hua Liao. Chapter 830. The president does not mean that he can cover the sky with one hand. In fact, the president is under the shackles of many forces. The national news media is always waiting to dig out political scandals. The major parties represented by the interests of the big chaebols will never stop, and the great prosecutor's office, which has attracted the attention of the general public. The Supreme Prosecutor's Office has a central supervision department, which specializes in investigating politicians and high-level officials. Its function is to prevent corruption and abuse of private power. Sidhu Yan had something to do with the murder case, no wonder it attracted the attention of the prosecutor. The presidential palace rejected the prosecutor's team's investigation request on the grounds that Sidhu Yan was in critical condition. That night, the presidential palace held an emergency meeting. As the president's wife and someone related to the case, Chen Kailing took part in it as a matter of course. With a pale face, she hurried to the conference room, and met the old lady who was holding a teacup. When the old lady saw her, she raised her hand and slammed the teacup onto her face. Chen Kailing was in a trance and forgot to dodge. Her forehead was bruised immediately, her head was covered with wet tea stains, she was in extreme embarrassment. "You poisonous woman," the old lady's face was livid, and she gritted her teeth and scolded, "Why did I choose you in the first place? Your brother murdered and broke the law, and you actually hid the body in my son's villa. Your heart is like a poisonous snake. 100 times more vicious. 10,000 times. No, that's not the case," Chen Kailing argued anxiously, "I didn't do that. My brother didn't kill anyone. Then why did his wife's head appear in my son's villa? Tell me. Tell me." "Why," the old lady roared, her eyes turned red with hatred whenever she thought that her son's political career might be ruined because of this. The assistant beside Chen Kailing tried to persuade her, "Old madam, beating and scolding is useless now, the most urgent thing is to find a way to calm this matter. Mr. Sidhu is still waiting for us in the conference room." The old lady was willing to let Chen Kailing go. The meeting room was full of people. Everyone in the president's office was present. This was the first major crisis that the president's office had faced directly. Everyone's expressions were not relaxed. The conference table in front of them is full of documents, all of which are currently collected news related to this matter. Originally, there were only 2 or 3 articles, but in an era of extremely fast transmission, major news media rushed to reprint and report. Even add oil and vinegar. Various versions have been evolved. "This is a conspiracy," someone said. "A conspiracy against Sidhu Yan. Otherwise, why is it such a coincidence that such a big scandal happened just as Sidhu Yan was about to recover from his illness and return to the presidential palace? Help the wife and brother hide the body, or assist in the murder. The people's imagination will kill Sidhu Yan." "Who arranged it?" someone asked again. "There are too many answers, it is impossible to guess, and it makes people feel unbelievable. How did the other party get ahead 2 years ago? Could it be that he deliberately stayed behind for 2 years to frame Sidhu Yan? A conspiracy in preparation for 2 years? This is too hard to believe." Chen Kailing explained, "Although the villa is under the name of our husband and wife, in fact, I hardly lived in it a few times. I asked the servant to clean it once a week. There is a lake there. My younger brother likes fishing, so sometimes I also go to the lake. We'll take friends to play for a few days." Mr. Sidhu looked at her seriously, "Tomorrow we will organize a press conference. At that time, can you repeat these words completely in front of the reporters?" Chen Kailing opened her mouth and looked at her father-in-law blankly. While these are facts. But if she really said that, wouldn't it be equivalent to telling everyone that her brother killed someone and blamed her brother-in-law? People don't blame the president, they only sympathize with him, because he has a stupid wife and a troubled brother-in-law. Tears flowed down silently, and Chen Kailing knew that she couldn't refuse. Husband and brother, she has to save one.